When was the last time you picked up a good book or sat down to read to your kids? Children these days are quoting the latest social media trends, think 6, 7, not the names or authors of a story they loved. And the stats don't lie. Children are not reading books anymore, at least not a lot of them. So what does that mean for our collective future? Are we raising an illiterate generation that can't understand basic sentences? Well, I'm Stefanie Dekker, and welcome to The Stream, where we take digital trends and your online conversations and give them context.
Apparently, in a lot of school systems, teachers are being told to specifically teach excerpts, not entire texts. And now, high schoolers are graduating high school having never fully read an entire book.
For high schoolers, one of their biggest problems is that they can't hold a pencil for a long period of time. Not only are they behind on academics and reading, but they seem to be behind on things that require core strength.
54% of adults are reading below a 6th grade level. That's more than half of adults are reading below where a 12-year-old should be reading.
Now, in the US, a third of 13 to 14-year-olds have below basic reading skills. And that's just one of many stats you can find about the global literacy crisis. Parents and teachers say children are struggling to read and understand texts that should be at their level. As the world goes digital, are books being left behind? Or is it a more complicated issue than just blaming our screens? Well, to discuss all of this, we're joined by Beth Gaskill, a literacy expert and founder of Big City Readers, a research-based education company. She's also creating content on early childhood literacy, and she's joining us from Chicago in Illinois. And we have Keisha Siriboe, a trauma-informed executive coach and literacy advocate. Now, she talks about how shared story time strengthens comprehension, critical thinking, and family bonds. And she's joining us from Charlotte in North Carolina. Ladies, I am very excited to have you on the show and to talk about what is such an important topic. Keisha, I'm going to start with you. The statistics don't lie. It's rather depressing, isn't it? Reading is down. Love of reading is down. Understanding what you are reading is down. How would you describe where we're at?
Humbly, I have to say, this is such a hard conversation to have, because when I did my doctoral research on this very topic in Hong Kong, and I have a TEDx talk from 2018 advocating for these things. And I hate to be the person to be like, called it, told you so, but I was advocating for reading aloud and highlighting the importance of the adult-child, parent-child bond as a mechanism to foster a love of reading. Because if we can establish a love of reading early on, we can leverage that for these deeper skills we're talking about now. And unfortunately, as I listen to this story and I'm excited about this conversation, I have to also think about the very painful realities of trying to push this message, trying to get this message out there, and a lot of the things that stopped me from really promoting this the way it needed to be promoted. And now here we are in that reality, which is probably why I lean more into mental health now, because I'm seeing, well, since we didn't really affect this crisis, what's the next thing we can get in front of, which is mental health.
Can I just quickly ask you, what did you see in 2018 that led you to predict where we are now?
So I was doing my research in Hong Kong, and at the time I was looking at the Pearls Global Literacy Study and looking at the fact that Hong Kong had the world's lowest engagement in parent-child reading aloud. Now, what I knew about the neuroscience due to my research was that when a child is first coming into the world, those first 3 to 5 years, they're breathing brilliance. They are an open sponge taking in information. And when you think about the power of the bond, no one means more to a child than that caregiver, than that adult. So if you're leveraging the power of the bond, and I called it magical in my talk, you're not only getting the full benefit of teaching them literacy, but you're also connecting it to a very social emotional experience, the joy, the closeness, the love, and that can anchor a child and encourage them to keep reading with the parent and then beyond, right? Because you have that foundation. And so seeing the resistance to that because we were more interested in the academic rigor versus the pleasure and enjoyment of literacy, this is what I saw coming. And this is why, particularly in the age of misinformation and influencer culture, you all have done great topics on loneliness, that this is really hitting home for me because I saw all this coming and now I'm just trying to help mitigate where we are versus being offensive and thinking forward of where we could be.
Keisha, you have such a beautiful way with words. Beth, you've just listened to so many points there. You're a teacher. What is it that I think parents don't know, teachers don't know? I mean, I was in the prep for this show, I was understanding that what kids are doing is they're memorizing what they're reading. They're not actually understanding it. Is that a real issue?
Oh, huge. So actually, I agree with everything Keisha's saying. And it's like, because we know you're your child's first teacher. And I actually shifted out of tutoring in my company to parent coaching because you are getting the most time with your kids. And it doesn't take a lot to support your child's reading. It just takes a couple minutes a day. But we're doing this absolutely wrong. And like Keisha said, it's not new information. Actually, the body of research known as the science of reading is almost 100 years old. And that research shows us exactly how the brain learns how to read. So our brain is typically wired to learn how to walk and talk, but it is not typically wired to learn how to read. And so if we're just teaching kids to memorize words, like it's called a sight word list often here, and we just give these kids words. And this new curriculum about 20 or 30 years ago came out, I think in the 90s, and it's been banned in many states. I think 15 states in the United States, it's banned at this point because it's so harmful. And this method is called 3-cueing, and it's basically cueing the child, like, look at the word. Have you seen it before? Can you take a guess? What word would make sense? And can you look at the picture and figure out what that word might be? So if it says, like, we are on the slide, and the picture is a slide. Then the next page is we are on the swing, and the next page is the swing. They're just guessing. And it looked like kids were reading, and it looked like they were passing all these assessments in kindergarten, first and second grade. But what we see is that kids are really struggling when they get to third grade. And I was a teacher that went to school and was taught to do this. This is not just hearsay. I literally paid to learn the wrong way to teach kids how to read. And I hate knowing that. But it is a huge mental health crisis. I'm so glad there are people like Keisha because it is so connected. Illiteracy rates are so closely connected to anxiety, depression, homelessness, incarceration. And so it is a matter of life and death for some people.
I think that's so fascinating.
It's very serious.
Sorry to jump in there. Yeah. So I don't think many of us know the real effects and consequences they're not reading have of us. Now, we've been talking about children, some scary statistics there. But when you look at adults, they're also not doing so well on the literacy front either. And maybe, just maybe, are we the problem?
Y'all need to realize that when we talk about 60% of the country being functionally illiterate, we're talking about you, people that don't know your yours, your theirs, your 222s. If you are consistently getting them wrong, we need to stop being like, oops, or, oh, is it really that big of a... Yes, it's a big deal. It is a big deal that you can't pass a third grade grammar test as a full-grown adult. You need to read something that's published, that's been reviewed, that's been checked for grammar errors, checked for spelling, checked for competency, not just TikTok comments.
You can see just how frustrated she is at those figures. While the literacy crisis has a lot of financial elements woven into it. In developing countries, people have a harder time accessing information and education, of course, but in a prosperous country like the US, the literacy numbers have consistently been going down among adults. Now, a recent study shows 40% of adults in the US did not finish one single book in 2025. So the issue might not just be about having the privilege to read, it's also about having the willingness to learn too, right? Keisha, when did we stop reading? As adults, for example, I love reading. I devoured books as a kid. It's hard to find the time, I guess, these days in a way. But for us adults, for example, no, I mean, I see your bookshelf behind you. I love it. It is packed with books. Like, have you read all of them? Like, what do we miss out on when we stop picking up literature?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. And guys, please call me DK. Please call me DK. You've asked several beautiful questions. I'm going to start with the last one. What do we lose when we step away from reading physical books or listening to audiobooks? I think one of the most valuable things, since we're talking about mental health, is the ability to unplug. Our screens, technology, AI, the global corporate culture is vying for our attention. So whenever you get on platforms, one video is always connected to another one. There's all these things that are trying to get you to focus here, look at this, accept this opinion. Well, when you can step back and go into the world of a story, you can slow things down. You can quiet a lot of the noise. More importantly, you can fact check some of the subtle ways that people are lying to you via social media. Like, I don't know if you watch a lot of podcasts or if you're someone who just takes in with, as a trained researcher, we're taught to triangulate. So I read several different sources and I have read every book on my bookshelf. I am an avid reader. And my ability to have that background context, when I come across someone who is just spouting off something they heard, I immediately can catch it. Or if I'm asked a quiz question, I have some contextual clues because of my background knowledge that'll put me in a better situation to answer in a reasonable manner versus just guessing.
So
right?
critical thinking,
And so
right?
those
That's
are
critical
some of the
thinking.
things. That is a great example of critical thinking. Like, I just want to pull up, I wanted to make sure I shared this. One of the reasons why, to share what my colleague has shared, why reading drops off at the 3rd grade level and why it becomes even harder when we're adults. Reading is a complicated skill. It's not an easy thing. And there are 3 main things that we're looking for by the time you get to 3rd grade, or what we're looking at when we're thinking about critical reading. You need to be able to extract ideas from a sentence. You need to be able to connect those ideas across multiple sentences. So as the paragraphs are stacking up, you should be able to start threading what we call the golden thread across these concepts, or start seeing where things align or maybe where they're, disconnecting. But lastly, and this is where a lot of the drop off is happening between the 2nd and 3rd point, integrating it within your own experiences, within your own knowledge to answer questions. So that ability to connect ideas and integrate it into your own experiences or requests for your skill sets, that's where we're missing the mark when we're talking about critical thinking. That's where the disconnect is. And so, like my colleague, I'm also a certified coach. I have a consulting company because I'm recognizing we need to support people in the implementation of these concepts, in the implementation of these solutions, because I think we're way past the point of needing to talk about the issue or research the issue. With technology and AI and all these other platforms, we have a wealth of possibilities and examples. Shout out to Mississippi, because they are a great example within the US. From 2013 to 2022, they have elevated their state's reading level. At 2013, they were like in the 40th level. As of 2022, they were halfway there, like 21st in terms of rankings. So we know that we can change this, but we need to be willing to actually do something.
So much there to unpack. Beth, I saw you nodding profusely, talking about Mississippi. I want to bring it back to the kids. I want to bring it back to parents. I want to bring it back to that human connection of, a mother, a father sitting on the bedside of their child and reading a story to them. Do we understand these days how important that is in the future development of their child?
No. And I think, you guys referenced a lot of TikTok videos, so you probably know about the bean soup theory. And that is, people will say, I have this great bean soup recipe, and people in the comments will be like, well, that's so rude. Some people are allergic to beans. Or what about people that can't have beans? And it's like, well, this is about this. So I think that that might be part of, obviously everything is connected, right? So we don't have critical thinking skills anymore. So we don't have nuance. We don't really have a lot of empathy for people. We're just like ready to fight. And so I see this in tips that I share around literacy. People will say, oh, well, now you're blaming teachers. It's like, no, we're literally just trying to get kids to read. We're trying to bring information and awareness to this. So yes, it is a problem because parents aren't connecting with their kids, and those moments do matter. But I think it gets lost when somebody, let's say I say, the most important thing you can do is read to your child. Then researchers and literacy experts will chime in and say, well, actually, you're lying to parents because they need explicit instruction. And then if I say, you know, kids need explicit instruction, we need to teach them how to read, somebody say, well, 10% of kids actually don't need explicit instruction. And then you say, okay, 10% of kids don't need explicit instruction. And then they say, well, my kid was never taught how to read. So you're spreading misinformation. So it's like, it's really, we're constantly getting away from the point. So yes, oh my goodness, like connection is the most important thing. And we know so much of our attachment, of our neurons, all of this building happens in the first 5 years. So reading to your child, whether they're 0 or 18, is so important. And we need proper instruction in the classrooms and for parents, because unfortunately we can't rely on a school district choosing the right research-backed curriculum to help support every child.
Unfortunately, we are running swiftly out of time, but I still want to pack a little bit in before we go to our next section. Looking at the future for the children who don't like reading. Since they are the future adults, what sort of life is waiting for them? Listen to this.
The class divide of the future is going to be who can read and critically think and who cannot. Let me explain. What every educator on this app is talking about, and what every educator in the field is noticing, is a dramatic decline in basic critical reasoning skills and basic literacy skills among students. This is particularly pronounced among high school age students, where they're engaging with more complex material and can't grasp basic concepts or manage basic memory about those concepts. And what this is creating is a generation entering the workforce without basic comprehension skills that is going to make it very hard for them to keep and maintain any form of employment.
Okay, Keisha, very, very briefly, because I want to pack 2 more questions into both of you. Do you agree with what he said? So the brief question would be, I know it's complicated, what is the worst that can happen if we don't reverse this?
Tragically, kind of what we're seeing right now within the political divides, the turmoil, the fracturing of our humanity, a very strong us versus them, because we are drawing a very firm line in the sand of who's reading for, comprehension and who's being manipulated by what they're told, right? There's the ability to read for understanding, and then people who are just controlled because what you're reading is what's being fed to you. So that's my short answer, in the sense of there's a need to call people in versus calling people out, and put hope in the message that, yes, this may be where you are, but we can improve this. You don't have to be left behind. There is a way for you to be brought back into a deeper understanding of the world around us.
Okay, I have the director telling me that I need to cut this short, but Beth, very quickly from you, do you have a favorite book, and what is it?
Oh my gosh. I love, oh my gosh, let me see.
Sorry to put you on the spot. We don't have time.
The Boy, the Wolf, and the Fox.
A story with a message.
The boy, the wolf, and the fox.
Ooh, it's the other way around. I have that book as well. I love that book. It's the other way around,
Oh
Keisha.
my gosh!
Oh, how wonderful. Love it. I have that book too. And it's such a great message, isn't it? Ladies, it's been wonderful. We are way over time, but that's okay. Thank you so much for coming onto the stream.
Thank you.
Well, we are going to continue this conversation now here in the Stream studio. We're joined by Margaret Kunji, who has over 3 decades of experience teaching in American public schools. Margaret, thank you so much for coming in to see us here at the Stream. You were listening to that conversation. You have firsthand experience teaching children. You obviously have an opinion about the young generation today. What is it?
I think that many kids are doing very well and will continue to do well, but there are a growing number of kids who are struggling in school for a number of reasons. They're struggling with the reading because they don't come to school with the oral language skills and the vocabulary that they need, and that's in a large part to parents spending a lot of time on their phones or with other technology instead of interaction and talking with the kids. There's also a problem with discipline in school. Across the country, I think it's normal now to have, one or two kids in a classroom who are severely disrupting everyone to the point where the whole classroom has to move out and go somewhere else to learn. And also, since COVID, there's been a big drop in attendance, which also is going to influence.
So how did we get to this point? A lot of people are blaming screens. Is it about the fact that we've now entered this digital age, that kids don't want to read, don't like to read?
I think that they are not as prepared when they come to school and have to start reading, because the screens that the parents are using have prevented them from developing their oral language skills and their vocabulary. I think the children themselves would like to read. They enjoy reading. When I would go and get my kids in school and pick up my groups, I would go out in the hall and I'd have to pick them up from 3 different classrooms for each group. And I wouldn't even be at the classroom door and they'd be coming out. They could not wait to come and read. And what they really enjoy is having that interaction and someone talking to them about the book. Well, part of the day I had groups of 5 kids and part of the day I had them one-to-one. And each time, either time, they just love coming and doing it. And, a lot of research actually shows people like to do what they're good at. So if you structure it so that they can be good at reading, they are going to like it. And if you show them how enjoyable it is and you find a book and you're laughing and they're laughing and you're like, oh, I don't want to quit yet, I want to see what happens next, let's just peek at the end, they really enjoy reading.
So in your experience, what have you seen, the children you taught, did you see a transformation in a child through reading? Do you have an example of that?
Well, you have to be able to read. I mean, to do well in life, to do well in school. I mean, these kids, if they can't read, are looking at a very difficult life. So I've seen kids that were the very bottom out of 100 kids at their first grade class who went on and became, aeronautical engineers. And even the kids who haven't done that well are able to function in society. They can read a newspaper, they can read the cookbook, they can pass their test to become a mechanic. I mean, it's a big impact on their lives. I've had kids who learn to talk through reading. I had one little girl, when I asked her, what did you have for dinner last night? She's like, McDonald's. She had dinner at McDonald's last night, and that was the extent of her language. And, so she learned to read that year, and she also learned to talk, and she kind of sounded like a first grade reading book, but it was good.
So there's so much that reading gives to kids, and I want to talk about accountability, I suppose, or where the fact that kids aren't reading from is coming from. So what if it's a lot more complicated than, why are these children falling behind in comprehension skills, for example? What if the issue is more systematic and political than we think it is?
You hear this a lot in education, teaching to the test, where we're going to just teach the kids how to answer the questions. Not how to think, not how to actually read and comprehend what you're reading, but how can we get as many kids as possible to answer the questions on the test in a way that will boost the score and the prestige of the school and therefore of the county that feeds into the state. So it stopped being about learning and thinking for yourself. It just started being about answering the question in the right way.
So what advice would you give for parents? I'm going to say young parents, but, parents with young kids who, like you're describing, they're stressed. They've had a busy day at work. Their kids are running around. It's the easiest thing to hand them a screen and have them be quiet for a couple of hours, right? Or an hour. What consequence is that going to have on the development of their child later in life? What is your advice to them?
It's pay now or pay later. I mean, there's going to be a cost. Something is going to be hard for you no matter what you choose. So I would advise them to do the hard thing now, put the screen away and pay attention to your kid, because otherwise, when they're a teenager, you're going to be struggling with them educationally and probably behaviorally as well.
That is fantastic advice, Margaret. I know so many parents are struggling with that. Thank you so much for coming into the Stream studio and talking to us. And thank you for watching. From me and the entire very fantastic Stream team, I will see you soon.